So I keep hearing people talking about they're behind at 22, 21. You know, they're not on game and they're not up on what they need to be at 22 years old. And my only like question is that like how aren't you how are you behind at 22 years old? You just got here. Lock it with me, y'all. We gotta yap about this for a little bit.
Hey, yo, I'm yapping here. What the like, subscribe, let's get it.
Because I need to understand. I need to understand this. Just let's lock in and play this game real quick. Because I guess for me, when I'm thinking of 22 years old, I'm thinking like, you know, you're probably the freshest you're gonna be. You know, yes, things are intimidating because you're new here and you just got to the adult server, we'll call it. You just got here. But like slime, like you can't be behind. The game just started. Even if you're 22 years old, you rock up an obscene amount of debt. And I'm not talking about student loans because they kind of got us all with that 1-2 buckle my shoe switcheroo thing. But you know, you're 22, you're 20, you're sub 30. You know, sub 25. I guess I call it that. 25 is kind of crunch time here. You know, if you want to get ahead, but like sub 25, man, you're just figuring stuff out. This is where you need to be figuring stuff out. And I understand that we've been told this before, and I understand we've been sold like a prosperity kind of gospel of like, oh, you're 22, you can do whatever you want. And I'm not saying that because that doesn't work out, and there's enough data for you to go find that out. You don't need me to tell you that. But what I think you need me to tell you is that like, if you're even thinking about being behind at 22 years old, you're a lot further ahead than most 22-year-olds. And I keep saying 22 years old as an example of age, but you guys get the idea. You get the drift of what I'm trying to, you know, say here. You're not wasting time. You're just experiencing time, you know? And I think we need to cut the narrative now for younger people who have fallen into the hustle bro prosperity trap of you got to be working, you got to be investing, you got to be doing this. Stop, pause. You should be investing, actually. You should look into how to do that. One of my biggest mistakes is not doing this at 22, so I'm trying to figure it out now at 32. But you should be doing that, so disregard that part. But like, if you don't do that now, it's still okay. You know, you have time to figure it out. You're 22. It's a lot of stuff going on with the market. It's confusing. The only thing I can recommend that I wish I would have known at 22 when I was 22 is to, you know, pay attention to some stocks, at least the ETF stuff. But this isn't a financial video. I'm not a financial expert. You don't have to listen to me. Just, you know, I would implore everybody at 22 years old to kind of chill out and take it easy a bit. What? You know, especially now, I think there's more of an emphasis that we need to, you know, take a breather with the way things are going right now. The economy is not really in a good place, in my opinion, but, you know, that doesn't mean that we can't have fun. And I think, you know, for the soul aspect of things, not to disengage from the financial aspect of everything, because that's also very important. Like I was saying earlier, do look into savings and investing and working towards something, because you don't want to be working for the sake of working, especially in this economy. There's not much to be working for. So you want to try to have a loose plan of things, even if it's a plan that can be pivoted, especially if it's something that can be pivoted, right? Always leave a backdoor exit from, you know, just blindly plugging away at something that may or may not serve you long term. Mostly may not. But, you know, beside the back door from leaving a situation that you may just want to change up, just try to work towards having something, you know. Even if you do help desk right now, you know, the accumulated experience that you have from help desk, for example, is going to serve you because you're working towards something. You're working towards a career. You're working towards a skill, you know. And if I'm being real with you, I maybe should make a video about how I think tech is probably coming or going to become like a trade type of job in the coming future here. You know, we don't really give IT help desk enough credit for that. But, you know, as long as you're working towards something or working towards bettering yourself in one way or another, which if you're on this channel, it sounds like you might be. The algorithm might recommend you something like that. But I don't think it needs to be stressed out about, you know, to this degree. Or maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you do need to stress out about this stuff to that degree, because, like, you know, I stressed about it as much as I could, and then I ended up having my kid at 23 years old, which was a good thing, ultimately. I love that guy. But also, like, that didn't give me the, trajectory that I initially planned for without having a kid or whatever, to stack and accumulate wealth. But that doesn't mean that even if that happens to you, I guess what my point of saying is, even if there's something like that happens, nothing's over. Things are honestly maybe just getting started for you at that point. For me personally, getting started with that, fire under my butt at that age, got me into going into sales, which got me better at public speaking, which got me to this point here on YouTube. I'm having a good time, But at 22, I guess the ultimate point of it is that this is all kind of experiences. Life is experiences, and you should just be focused on experiences. Yeah. Again, not an invitation to experience things that'll fuck you or your life up at 22. Don't jump into the deep end without having at least an understanding of what you're trying to get into. But also don't get trapped in analysis paralysis of what the future's gonna look like, what you should be doing in the future. Because if we're being real, half of this shit that we're doing now wasn't around. What? And I guarantee that what's around now is probably not gonna be as around in 10 years. Having been born in like the 90s and stuff, and kind of, being here in 2026, none of this stuff is the same, but it hasn't been the same for a long time. Things have been kind of switching up, changing over and over and over again for a lot of my life, and that's just what it is. And I think that, as a generation or as a society, we're kind of out of like we haven't circled back to the era where things are kind of slowly progressing. We're in an era of extreme, fast progression with technology and stuff. And even if like AI peters out here in a year or so, it kind of comes back to, not underground, but like not as prevalent of a thing society wise. I tend to think about the dot-com burst or bubble for the 90s and how the internet wasn't this big, massive thing that it was now at first. And honestly, a lot of people thought of it like, fantasy or just something that, a fad really that'll pass through. And then we'll get back to doing stuff like we used to do. I'm kind of seeing it more as a bubble that's going to come back around. And I'm hoping that whatever they end up doing with this stuff, it kind of stops invading creative spaces, for one. And two, it stops invading people's asshole spaces, because, we don't need to be poisoning communities for bullshit. We don't. And I'm not advocating one way or another. I honestly think it bears further exploration as to how we can identifiably just use it in a better way, because right now we need to pull a plug and cut this shit out. It's kind of fucking everybody over. This AI stuff, but I think it's just we're at a point in time where the bubble's gonna burst. I keep saying bust. The bubble's gonna burst, and we're gonna see more of a return to something else. So we're gonna see something new getting integrated into society here, in a hopefully a more equitable way. But I don't think it'll be on the corporations to make that happen. But at this point, we're rambling here. I don't want to make this a video about too many big topics, but just going back to the original issue of being 22 years old or sub 25 and not having things figured out. The fact is that things are changing all the time. All you need to really figure out is, a way to keep up with the changes, be adaptable yourself, learn the enemy. Currently the enemy is AI. Learn it, as in know what it is, so you can identify what you need to do to combat it or use it however you need to, preferably as the least amount possible. But I'm working in IT now, where it's being currently integrated into my job against my will. It is something that you may have to engage with as corporations progress. But other than that, you need to be focusing on having experiences you can talk about later or tell a story about. If you're under poor, or if you're poor class or middle class or underrepresented in the working class type of situation, then definitely of course you have to work and stuff. You have to make sure you're doing what you got to do for your family, for your situation financially. But I don't know, man, you don't have to do much to experience life at 22. I think we need to get more familiar with taking walks and stuff outside again. I don't think a lot of our generation or the generations that are younger now do that enough. There's a lot of touch grass memes going on, but actually we should go touch some grass, and maybe I should make a video about what touching grass means. Let me know in the comments. But I just think that the stress that you put on yourself at 20 whatever for the the payoff to not be much in your 30s is kind of, you know, it just really shouldn't be like that for us. I think we should just, you know, kind of take a step back, take a breather, and see what's going on for ourselves at 20 years old. You know, maybe there's more to life than what we're seeing available to us, or maybe I'm just BSing and I'm just talking out my ass as a 32-year-old, and maybe I need to be taught a lesson. Tell me in the comments, let me know. I just appreciate you guys stopping by and listening to me ramble. This is more of a rambly video. I'm just talking while we game what this channel's about. So let me know if you fuck with it. Let me know if you hate it. I'm probably still gonna do what I want anyway, but I do listen to input. So thank you. Have a good day. I love y'all, and much love. Talk later.
Hey, yo. I'm yapping here. What the? Like, subscribe. Let's get it.